Wanted to focus in our opening segment on Hurricane Helene. Important advice to the folks in those communities, especially in Appalachia, that were so horribly devastated.
Our hearts and our prayers go out to all the victims in the path of Hurricane Helene. There's just no words to understand what everybody is going through down there. And we hope that when the time comes, if you need the government assistance that is available to you, that we can give some small measure of advice to ease your way through that process. And Trevor's going to talk a little bit about some of those things with the natural disaster EIDL loan.
If you're in a disaster area and you go to the local firehouse, you meet with the FEMA rep
Or the library.
and you tell them, or the library or the town hall, wherever it is, and they're going to tell you, oh, small business, you have to talk to the SBA. There's probably an SBA rep on the ground. And again, I would caution against making an application with the SBA rep in the community center, in the disaster aid center. I would caution against it. I would not even register with them, because I've already assisted people in Florida, Hurricane Ian, who had done that, and then they came into me later to fix how the SBA rep had screwed up their application, and I couldn't fix it, and they did not get approved. So I strongly recommend you take a deep breath, take a step back for your small business. The kind of loan you can apply for in a natural disaster with the SBA are the following. If you are a homeowner or a renter or a small business in a natural disaster area, you can apply through the SBA for a low-cost loan for physical damage, to repair physical damage and pay for physical damage to your home, to your apartment. If your furnishings and your personal belongings were damaged, you can borrow money from the government at very, very low cost to replace that physical damage, replace your personal belongings. If you're a small business, to replace inventory, repair damage to the facility, your business. And that will be based upon what insurance you have. If you're a homeowner, what insurance you have there. If you're a renter, if you have renter insurance. If you're a small business, if you have business interruption insurance, if you have insurance for your business. And what SBA does is looks at your insurance, and then they will lend you money above and beyond what the insurance covers for the damage, okay? And they do send out an assessment team to look at the property to determine what they believe. In addition, a small business owner can request an economic injury disaster loan, which is to make up for revenue that was lost due to the natural disaster. If you have a dry cleaners on Main Street, I often use dry cleaners. I don't really know why I use dry cleaners, but if you have a dry cleaners on Main Street and the town was damaged, your business survived intact. There was no physical damage. But because of the nature of the disaster, people can't get in or get out, or there's no power, whatever it is, and you cannot open your business and operate your business to earn revenue for your business. Or if you are able to open it, but maybe on a limited basis, and you can't earn the same kind of revenue you were able to earn same period last year, you can request an economic injury disaster loan through the SBA. So a small business, you can get physical damage, economic injury disaster loan. Homeowners and renters, you can get physical damage loans through the SBA. The FEMA reps will fill you in on this.
One of the things that I do want to say for those that haven't visited with us, the reason we go live is because we try to provide what assistance we can with questions that you may not be able to get answered from the Small Business Administration. We have been working on the COVID-19 EIDL since March of 2020. We have worked on hundreds of EIDL files, but thousands of interactions with small business owners and with SBA reps directly. We do not represent the SBA. We do not work for the SBA. We are merely consultants as an intermediary to help business owners ease the path of the process, because SBA is one of the most underfunded agencies in our government, and yet are tasked with a monumental mission of assisting millions and millions of business owners and homeowners and residents.
30 million is the number that SBA says is their constituency out here in the small business community. ℬ𝒜𝒦𝒢ℛ𝒪𝒰𝒩𝒟𝒮, who is the administrator of the SBA, it's a cabinet level position. It was not prior to President Biden, and he made it a cabinet level position because he recognized the value of the Small Business Administration. And when he brought Ms. Guzman in, she frequently spoke of the constituents of the Small Business Administration, 30 million small businesses. And I'm sorry I didn't grab the graphic, but I found a statistic the other day that showed that the small businesses in the United States do something like 70 or 79% of the hiring
Okay.
and the employment in the United States. That's a crazy number. 30 million businesses manage almost 80% of the three-quarters, let's say, of the employment in the United States. And many of those businesses are 5 employees or less.
The reason why we had a business in the first place was because the personnel at SBA, sometimes they call people in for whether it's a disaster or like when the pandemic was designated, when the SBA was designated for the COVID disaster for the funding to disperse funds during lockdown to help businesses survive, they had to call in tens of thousands of people to help work. And some of them might not have had a financial services background or a lending background, or even owning a business background.
No.
When the process of applying for a loan, which
during the pandemic,
some businesses didn't go into business to understand and learn how to apply for a business loan. So their DIY process might have been a little bit bumpy, rocky, lots of hiccups, lots of hurdles. And the SBA didn't necessarily, in every single case, make it very easy or seamless for the businesses to get the funding. And I couldn't even list off the top of my head all of the various issues that would surface that a business owner was like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what they're asking for. And so here we are. And the reason why we're giving this background, especially for folks who may have been with us for the last 4.5 years and know how we come on here and have live, is because I just wanted to give the benefit of those who may not have been with us before. And why are these two people talking about any of this stuff?
It's boring. But
Thank you for indulging.
It's boring until you have to actually engage with the Small Business Administration. So if you're done with the intro,
I am.
Okay.
Was that okay for you?
I am suitably impressed.
Whoa, because I gotta tell you,
I think you get a round of applause for that.
That was off the seat of my pants, for sure.
I'm sorry, that was dead air, right?
Yeah.
I was watching the PBS NewsHour a few minutes ago, and the video from these communities is astonishing.
It's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying.
And we know from our experience during the pandemic, the COVID pandemic program with the Small Business Administration was built off of the Small Business Administration's Natural Disaster Loan Program, which was created by Congress at the same time that Congress created the Small Business Administration in 1953. And the Congress understood at that time, recognized a need that insurance will only get you so far after a natural disaster happens. And so the purpose of the SBA lending facility in a natural disaster is to make up, compensate for that loss of money that the insurance company only goes so far. And for the SBA to make a low cost loan that will help make up for that, the loss, the limited funds. Okay. Yesterday was my birthday.
Yes!
So, I'm still kind of, I imagine those folks are not watching this video right now.
Not.
We know from the news reports that so many people are experiencing lack of access to Wi-Fi, cell phone, gas. I mean, people are lining up at the one or two gas stations, the few gas stations that are open. But I wanted to at least get this information out there. And if you know someone in the hurricane disaster area who may find this information, who may need this information I'm about to share, please do let them know about the channel, EIDL experts. First step, when a disaster happens, the president declares a disaster area. Second step, FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, comes in and they provide immediate cash infusions of all sorts. They have a blue tarp program where they have contractors come out and they'll just put tarps on roofs that are damaged, assuming a house is still standing. They set up in local community centers, often the local firehouse or the town hall or the school, and they immediately start collecting information from homeowners, from people who live in the community, and from business owners to provide immediate cash infusions. But the catch is business owners cannot receive assistance from FEMA. The FEMA representative will tell a small business owner, you must apply through the Small Business Administration. Now, this question comes up a lot. Why does the SBA have anything to do with a natural disaster? Well, essentially, the federal bureaucracy came to the realization that the Small Business Administration has its experience and its infrastructure already built for lending, because the Small Business Administration underwrites and guarantees loans that commercial banks make to small businesses under various SBA programs such as 7A, 504, and so forth, and Express. Because the SBA has that lending infrastructure for underwriting files, document review, all of that, it didn't make sense, according to the government, thinking at the time, for FEMA to learn something that another agency already knew how to do and had the infrastructure in place. If you are a small business owner in a natural disaster area, notably right now in the Hurricane Helene disaster area, and you go to the local firehouse or the town hall and you meet with a FEMA representative, they will tell you you have to apply through the Small Business Administration. And this is where I would caution you, if you are a business owner, to put the brakes on it. Do not rush into the application process for a natural disaster loan. The rate of failure is so high with the SBA that the best way of minimizing failure, improving your chances of success, is preparation. And that is where we come in terms of the expert advice that we provide here on YouTube and also on our EIDL resource hub.
I want to jump in on a couple of things. Number one, the disaster doesn't have to just be declared by the president, I recall. Like, even I've seen where...
That is true. The SBA administrator can declare one. The governor of a state can declare one. But
and Isabel
the presidential declaration is the gold standard.
And typically, SBA will have a web page on their site dedicated to that disaster with details, and it has a number associated with it and so on. But I think one thing that we need to really stress on hitting the brakes on the process is because when business owners who aren't used to filling out government forms or managing a bureaucracy, managing the personnel at a bureaucracy with this kind of process, the rate of failure, it's true, if they're confused, they will decline. If a form is incomplete, they will decline. If you fill out the tax transcript form, which they will decline. We have a playlist dedicated to the natural disaster, how to apply. We have a playlist just for that.
And we're currently in the process of updating those for a natural disaster loan, or you have applied for a natural disaster loan and you were declined and you want to come back and ask the SBA to reconsider the application. We're adding a private playlist of special instructional videos to the Resource Hub, and that will be only for people who purchase the Resource Hub access. Included in the Resource Hub are all of the templates that I created as a 30-year veteran I was a mortgage banking loan officer for 30 years, and I've processed thousands of SBA transactions. As recently as today, I'm still processing COVID-19 EIDL transactions for business owners all around the country. And I know how to speak to the SBA, and I have templates I've created that will help you be more successful with whatever your process is. So that's built into the Resource Hub. In addition, you will find forms such as the IRS form for the transcripts that you will need, SBA forms that are required, so that you can view these forms and these templates and these instructions in advance of applying for the loan. If you are in a natural disaster area and you want to apply for a natural disaster loan, we cannot stress enough how, based upon our experience of processing thousands of interactions since March of 2020 with the SBA, and again, right up until literally today, cannot stress enough how preparation is everything to improve and maximize your opportunity for success with the program.
So I want to interrupt you because before I forget, the thing though, that one of the biggest tips that we would have to say is if you did your best to prepare and you applied and you were still declined, the first thing you have to do is just request a reconsideration and you don't reapply, you just request a reconsideration for them to overturn their declination. You probably remember all the deadlines on that.
No, it does not have to be done immediately.
Okay, see, that's
so this is
deadline.
One of those points where all of you who know us for 4 years know this is where we have an argument right on screen live. You do not have to apply. You have 6 months from the
Okay.
point
To
that you
submit.
are declined 6 months to submit a request for reconsideration. And we, again, advise that you, if you were declined, to step back, gather up a pound of patience, and then review your loan application and look at your business documents, your tax returns, your formation documents, articles of formation, all of that to see what in there may have, because the SBA, when they decline the loan, may not and usually does not give you a very specific answer.
They do not. Exactly.
It's a very general, vague, bureaucratic mumbo jumbo kind of response in the letter that says you are hereby declined. And recently what I've seen is the SBA doesn't even say you're declined anymore. They say you have withdrawn your application, which is, I'm not going to go into that tonight, but that really pisses me off that they do that.
But the other thing I want to jump in and also say, Trevor is the loan officer. One of the things about us that some people may not know, because if you're new, is that Trevor is a retired loan officer. I am a retired insurance agency owner. And so I kind of wear the business owner hat to untangle some simple confusions that for business owners that may seem a little like, what does that mean? And to him, this is normal vernacular. So one of the tips is that if you did get a COVID-19 EIDL loan and you are looking to apply for a natural disaster loan, our biggest recommendation to you is to submit a Freedom of Information Act request to get the original application from when you submitted your COVID-19 EIDL, because we have seen too many times where SBA is going to decline for discrepancies
between the COVID application and the current natural disaster application.
This is the thing, when you've had thousands of interactions, Trevor directly, me through osmosis, and hearing through what the clients are struggling with, and then what Trevor is struggling with managing with the SBA, and the luck of the draw of who an SBA rep that gets assigned to a file. It's a luck of the draw. So if you are like, why is this declined? And that begins a whole nother process. So we're trying to give you upfront what to expect, which is to submit a FOIA request, get your COVID-19 application. And if you think you have it, you would be mistaken.
No, you don't have it. Because nobody has it.
Right. Because what they gave you was the loan agreement. They didn't even have the capacity through their tech, through their portal, to give you the application that you submitted online.
And the applicants did not know to download a copy. I learned the lesson the hard way about getting a copy, because the very first loan I applied for as a test was for our own business, because we had clients who had hired us, and before I would put their application, I wanted to know how it worked. So I put in an application for us. We were not going to get very much money because our business was brand new. We had basically only just had a little bit of revenue in 2019. But I mean, I got us approved. But the first thing I learned was at the end of the application process, I'm looking on the SBA website and there was no facility for me to get a copy of the application I had just submitted. So going forward, with the hundreds of applications I submitted in the ensuing 2 years, I made screenshots of every page, including the summary page, and I kept those in a PDF format for my clients. And people tell me all the time, like, oh, I have it. And then I go, okay, you don't, but show me what you've got. And then they send me the loan agreement, which is not the application. When the SBA is processing a natural disaster loan application today, they're going to request the tax transcripts from the Internal Revenue Service to verify the income that you're claiming on your tax returns. Generally speaking, this is a quality control measure because you will be uploading your tax returns into the MySBA portal when you apply for the natural disaster loan. But there's a secondary issue, and we found this to be, in my opinion, an over-reliance by the SBA on these tax transcripts. Sadly, to the point where a lot of the loan specialists actually rely on the tax transcript to verify numbers and use those numbers, use that math for approving your loan when they can't even read the tax transcript. And if you've ever seen what an IRS tax transcript looks like, you'll know what I mean. They're like impossible to read. They should be using the tax returns and just do a comparison, an A/B comparison. That's what we did in the mortgage business. But you need to be aware that they are going to request those transcripts. And in the MySBA portal, once you've completed all of the basic steps of your application, you're going to arrive at the request for you to authorize what's called IRS Form 8821. And this is a form that allows the SBA to request those tax transcripts directly from the IRS, and they get sent to to the SBA. There's two things you need to know. Number one, the SBA is not processing these requests. They're being sent out to a third party, which bugs the living heck out of me because, why is the government using an outside contractor for something so sensitive? But secondly, I've already seen with one of our clients that the SBA prepares the form for you. They want you to download the form, put a signature on the form, and upload the form with what's called a wet signature, an ink signature, right, with a pen. But the problem I have seen already with one client is that the SBA's form prepared by the website, by the SBA, was incorrectly completed, which means that when it goes to the IRS is going to bounce it saying no record found, and your loan will be declined because the SBA will think that you're trying to commit fraud by applying for a loan when you never filed your tax returns for that business. Yeah, this is how the SBA thinks. So you've got to be extra careful with Form 8821. What I recommend you do is review the form, and before you sign it, use the carpenter's rule. Measure twice, cut once. Check that form for accuracy against your tax return. Put them side by side. Make sure that the tax return, the heading of your tax return, the name of the business, or the name of your personal name if it's a personal tax return with a Schedule C, make sure that that information, the first page of the tax return, exactly matches the 8821, because that's how the IRS is going to find your tax return in their files. The top of your first page of tax return must exactly match the 8821 form. And I'm talking exactly. If your accountant spelled out the word road, you're at 123 Harrison Road, and he spelled out road, make sure the form says ROAD, road. If he put RD for road, make sure your form says RD. Yes, I'm talking about that level of detail to ensure that the IRS can locate your tax transcript. My recommendation is first part, prepare and be very careful. Measure twice, cut once. Also, you can visit the IRS website, download an 8821, and then, as I did with our client, I prepared my own version of the form so that my information exactly matched my client's tax return, because the form generated by the SBA did not match his tax return, and it would have been returned as no record found. But there's one other element to preparing your own 8821, and that's the identifying information for the third-party vendor who's processing it. What you've got to do is look at 8821 and then enter the information from the SBA's form for the third-party vendor and put that into the boxes on your own 8821 that you're preparing. Does it sound complicated? It is. You know why? Because the SBA makes everything complicated. But if you want the easiest possible process, the most efficient process on a natural disaster loan, this is one of the elements that we recommend that will get you to the finish